Jim Cornette is one of the biggest names in the wrestling world. As a former WWE manager and personality on screen, he has been involved in the world of wrestling for a long time. Even outside WWE, his love for wrestling is no secret. The man is known as one of the greatest wrestling historians of all time. However, along with that love for wrestling history comes an unmovable opinion on what wrestling should be. He is never different in what he wants from the wrestling world and has made it clear too. Anything that goes against his philosophy of what wrestling should be is immediately insulted and blamed viciously by him on his Jim Cornette Experience. Unfortunately for everyone with this, anyone who goes against him becomes the victim of a barrage of insults on the podcast, with legitimate criticism about them also added in. This is Wrestling Up, and these are the wild things Jim Cornette has said about WWE this year. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official, and also follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. Vince McMahon didn't have the best 2022. After getting it off to a good start by appearing at WrestleMania and even wrestling a match at his age against Pat McAfee and eating a stone cold stunner, McMahon's stock has taken a nosedive. It was the reports and the rumors of not only his alleged infidelity to his wife Linda McMahon, but the treatment of female employees and wrestlers by him and Johnny Ace. McMahon's alleged sexual misconduct came to light along with the fact that he had paid in the millions to cover it up, with a reported sum of over $12 million paid to different women after the original story of the paralegal came out. It was time to go. Johnny Ace was removed from his position in the company after an initial suspension. Vince McMahon was also forced to step down while an investigation went on, before he was forced to step down permanently as CEO, with Nick Khan and Stephanie McMahon becoming co-CEOs, and Stephanie's husband Triple H becoming the head of creative as well as the head of talent relations in WWE. When these stories originally came out, there was a lot of focus on the reality of the lack of a married life between Vince and Linda McMahon. Jim Cornette spoke about it on his podcast, and he said that Linda McMahon and Vince McMahon were unofficially separated, and even though they didn't divorce, an internal settlement was made between the two of them, with Vince focusing on WWE while Linda focused on her political career. They just didn't do the divorce. The settlement was already made. Would she spend $80 million to run for Senate? Like she's going to be a senator? She went from Vince to Trump, which is definitely a trade down. We've said Vince is an articulate, eloquent, intelligent president, but she didn't need a divorce to get her settlement. She's living her own life, doing her own thing, associating with other rich billionaire a-holes and running her offices. She's never gonna win. Whatever the reality of their marriage is, given that Vince has cheated on her and those cheating acts have been the focus of intense public scrutiny, it can be safe to say the two don't share a happy marriage. Shane McMahon might be a bit of a joke in recent times, as he was always able to get on the nerves of WWE fans by being pushed where he should not be, but if there's one thing they did respect him for, it's his ability to take risks in the ring and put on a show that no one will forget. Despite not being the best wrestler, every time Shane enters the ring, it's something to remember, and there's a reason why. He can play to the crowd. Given his long history in the business, it's a huge compliment to anyone to be compared to Shane. Thus, when Jim Cornette of all people compared Pat McAfee to Shane McMahon, it was the highest honor. Given the critical nature that Cornette has to anyone outside the wrestling world, him complimenting McAfee was an enormous moment for WWE as a whole. It's not all about these stunts with McAfee because he is a personality. He knows how to talk a fight up, and he knows how to hype. He has got energy and he has got a personality, but you know, he is always throwing in the athletic stuff. He is like if Shane McMahon had been a professional athlete. But again, McAfee after 4 matches is better than half of the AEW roster and most of the guys on the independents. With Triple H in charge of talent relations and in charge of the company's booking, many of the wrestlers who had previously been released by WWE were recently hired back. Several have been making appearances on a regular basis now and is getting to a better level. However, there have been too many returns according to some, and as a result, some of them have fallen flat. Jim Cornette pointed out one of the changes and how the returns of one of the stars was underwhelming at best. While some fans were happy that he was back, Cornette said that this was the opposite of a game changer and went on to critique everything he felt was wrong with him. Obviously, this is the furthest thing from a game changer in any wrestling war that Johnny Gargano has returned to entertain us with his generic build, his diminutive body, his pale complexion, his undemonstrative face, and his general overall silly demeanor. Theory needs to be in the mix with top guys in order not only to learn the style of working that the top guy is there, but also to be brought up in the people's eyes, the fans' eyes, as he's an upper echelon guy to mix with the top talent, instead of here's this guy who just came back after his glorious run in NXT a year and after his wife just had a baby. Gargano is still not really in any feud, although his recent revelations about The Miz, it's likely that he will be in one of the feuds that will take focus going forward and will hopefully launch him into a better place on the main roster. Finn Balor is one of the most beloved wrestlers in WWE. He has a hardcore fan base and was also the founder of the Bullet Club in New Japan, something that has given him more fans than he knows what to do with. In WWE, he has not always had the best of luck. After winning the NXT title and having a good run there, he came up to the main roster and immediately became one of the stars that the focus was on. He went on to become the first ever WWE Universal Champion, but an injury in the final of the Universal title tournament led to the star having to give up the title sooner than he should have. Since then, he didn't really find more than an occasional push on the main roster as the Demon, and went back to NXT where he was successful. Meanwhile, when the Judgment Day was first formed, Edge was the leader. However, when the full faction turned on him and kicked him out, it was with a surprising replacement, as Finn Balor was named the leader of the faction instead. While fans were interested in this development, not everyone was. For one, Jim Cornette was furious and made it clear on his podcast, talking about how this was the worst thing that could have happened to the Judgment Day. They turned on Edge and put Finn Balor in the group. Now they've traded a Hall of Famer and a legend, and an outstanding promo for a guy that's great technically and very small, and has the personality of a cabbage. And then Rhea Ripley's injured or sick or both, apparently. Thankfully, the return of Rhea and with Dominic joining, Judgment Day looks much better than before. The Rock not only has a daughter, but she is old enough to wrestle and is currently a part of WWE. She was revealed recently as a part of the Schism, something that really divided the internet as to whether that was the best use of her. However, long before this, when The Rock's daughter was first signed to the Performance Center, there was a lot of hype around her, as fans were clearly excited to see what the most successful WWE's wrestler's daughter could do in the company that made him famous. However, when she made her first appearance, the fans were left nonplussed, as they not only gave her an odd gimmick, they also changed her name to Ava Raine. They were weirded out by how WWE went out of their way to make sure that no connection was made between The Rock and his daughter, when having that connection gave her the push that she needed so desperately in the beginning and would have immediately helped her get to superstardom. Cornette was furious about this as well and talked about it, saying her name is not, if she's not going to use Simone Johnson and they're not going to use Little Rock or Little Pebble or Female Pebble or whatever, what is she even there for? She's the daughter of the most famous wrestler in the history of the company. Now currently, since he's the biggest movie star in the world and they're going to change her name so that you don't automatically know she's The Rock's daughter on the card, she's The Rock's daughter. Raine personally felt different and said that she didn't see the problem in having a different name. I probably sound like a broken record, and hopefully this is the last I'll mention this, but I don't understand why people being portrayed as separate individuals from their family name is such a heated topic. A name doesn't discredit any prior accomplishments from any family. Given her new gimmick and becoming a part of the Schism, the coming weeks will determine if she was right or not, depending on how fans continue to react to her and how she ends up being booked during her first proper run in the wrestling company. Vince McMahon stepped down after allegations arose against him. At first, he made appearances on Raw and SmackDown after the allegations as if to show that he didn't care. But following a lot of backlash and even more allegations, it was clear that it was time for him to go, and go he did. Jim Cornette had the more unique take, saying that he felt that Vince McMahon was still someone that people would want to see on television again to say whatever it is that he wants. He even talked about a pay-per-view where McMahon could get a send-off and a chance to say whatever he wanted to say in front of a live crowd that the people had come to watch his company for so long. He added that by doing this, to some fans he would be the biggest babyface, and it would be something that WWE could utilize to get someone a lot of heat. In what world would anyone not want, no matter how this turns out, Vince McMahon on television one more time to say whatever he wants to say? They can advertise that on pay-per-view, especially if they said, hey Vince, guess what? We're taking the company away from you and you can't come back, but we'll do a pay-per-view and you can say anything you want. That would be the biggest pay-per-view they could possibly do. You just can't. It can't end this way. No matter what happens, win, lose, or draw, Vince McMahon would have to be on WWE television in some capacity one more time, because fans, this would make him the biggest babyface in the history of the world if they kicked him out and never saw him again. At one point, RK Bro was the hottest thing on WWE TV. However, thanks to an injury, Randy Orton had to be written off the program. When it came time for him to take his time off, it was Riddle who was left in the lurch and talked about the injury that Orton had. However, this promo was critiqued by Jim Cornette, who felt that Riddle needed a lot more work before he was given a mic, and that he was hurting Randy Orton by being put together with him. I can't figure out this appeal. I can't listen to this. Maybe that's part of it. He plugged the 6-man tag team match, and that was, before Randy, bro. He's been having a rough time, bro. With you as a partner, I see why he is having a rough time. I'd be home milking an injury too if I had to depend on you. Was that real emotion, or was that a dipsh acting further like a dipsh? And these were wild things Jim Cornette has said about WWE this year. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.